things, and I had forgotten that the reason I can do this job I do is because I had been doing it for years before anyone started watching me, and I started watching and I accumulated the skill to do it. You can't just take 2 weeks, 2 years off and come back and expect to do that stuff. And I did all my hardest material because I was trying to show off to Hugh Laurie. House in a house. And the audience were amazing though, because it made me look. I did realise if I'm a juggler, the jugglers always drop a ball early in their act, or drop one a bit of the way through to make everyone go, shit, this looks hard, and then they. And I don't tend to drop balls. It's almost about balls tonight. I don't tend to do that. That's not one of my tricks. I used to do my very first song in all my first shows was very simple, and I'd do a solo, like which is a dropping of a ball, and I go. I'm fucking legend. But I had done that for years, and I realised that by losing those lyrics and looking vulnerable, I was dropping balls, and so the audience were amazing on my side. But in my head, I was like, okay, you've done 4, and you've just fucked up Storm. We're starting again, and you have 9.5 minutes, and you can't fuck this up. You will look like an amateur. You will look like you haven't done your due diligence. And I was panicking. It was just white noise and white light. 9.5 minutes of big words about science, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. My skin was prickly. I was having stage fright.
That's really interesting, because yesterday when they were talking about the Djokovic-Federer match, and at one point, Federer was making lots of mistakes, and the commentator said he just has to reset the point.
I know.
And I thought, well, that's interesting what you just said there, resetting it all and moving forward.
So hard. I hate talking about it. In fact, my first experience of trying on stage, I was about 19 doing a David Hare play in a church in Perth, and I got off stage, and then every night for the rest of the run, it was like 1 week or 2 weeks amateur, I cried before I went on stage. I was so scared, and then I thought, I'm going to get to the end of this, I'm never going to act again. I'm never going to do that again. And so the week after, I auditioned for 3 things because just like, give me a big fucking horse, I want to get back on, otherwise I'm screwed. And so I'm trying to, the way I've decided to interpret that experience is, of course I was going to muck up some things. I put too much pressure on myself and I hadn't done the work. But if I can get through that show, totally white light and ringing and prickly, if I can get through 9.5 minutes of Storm with those people in the room, I never have to be scared. That's the way I choose to interpret that. If I'm honest, I'm worried about, I don't like the damage that fear does to you. Comedy especially is a leap of faith. It's just going, fuck you, half of yourself that can't quite believe you do this job. I'm not interested in you. It's about putting him away. And when he comes and spends some time with me on stage, the half of me that knows I'm not capable, then you just don't. It's scary. So I need to do more shows. I must.
Yeah, you keep
I'll be fine.
Those muscles.
Yeah, and I'm here now. I mean, I'm obviously not scared about being in front of people.
One of the things that I deliberately didn't mention, but I'm going to bring up now, I didn't mention in the intro, it was the colour of your hair, the makeup, all of that sort of stuff. And I didn't, because when people, I hate people, to my face who I don't know, saying, oh, you've got a lot of freckles, or, have you thought about this with your hair? And I think, what? Come on, don't speak about me to my face, please.
Yeah,
so you haven't always looked like this. So when you
I've aged. Growing a beard for a part.
Yeah. So when
playing Jim Key in a quirky comedy.
When you did this look, I'm just curious to know if you actually, it's just what you do, you don't think about it, or is it a mask, a distraction, a statement of some kind?
It developed out of liking dressing up and wearing makeup. Like I used to do these little gigs in a little cabaret room in Melbourne, and I just, because I come from an acting theatre-y background, I always put a bit of something on, like I've got on now, like just to stop the glare and make sure you can see my eyes, which doesn't really work obviously, but and so I started doing that, and I don't know, I think I just thought I'd wear more and it would look a bit weird. Because remember, I had nothing. I was playing to 5 people a lot of nights and doing cover bands, and all I wanted to do was do something. It's cabaret as well, and it's in this quirky little sort of very camp little venue in South Melbourne. I mean, it brought out the camp in me, and then I went to Sydney and I lost a bit of weight, and I was sort of getting that transformation vibe. I was like, oh, okay, what am I now if I'm not that guy? And so I straightened my hair, because I always thought curly hair looked a bit low. I mean, it's about status. In the end, looking back on it all, the look is about status, and comedy's all about status. So I've talked about this a bit before, so forgive me, people who listen to podcasts and stuff. But you know, Stuart Lee's utter self-loathing is so beautifully offset by his utter self-regard on stage, arguably in life. But it's hard to know what's real and what's not, because he pits them so hard against each other. His contempt for the audience up against his utter contempt for himself. And I say this as I admire him massively, as a huge fan. And Kitson and all these guys have status, and it's a slightly different thing in what I do, because I'm a showman, but somehow the shoes take status away. The piano brings status up, the way I talk a bit faster and a bit like that takes status down. You know, keeping your eyes down, keep status down, swearing puts status up, and it's all just about treading that line, going, I deserve to be here talking to you, you should listen to me because I have this, this and this. By the way, I'm not lecturing you, and you shouldn't be threatened by me, and you should come on this journey with me because I'm just this, this and this. And I think that's all post-hoc rationalisation of what I do. I don't think about my comedy at all, I don't think about structures of jokes. I'd never been to a comedy show before I started, I don't care about comedy theory, I have no idea what I do. But I can talk a little bit about the stats. So that's, I have that.
You sound very mathematical there as you were talking about it. So like a little bit of this, a little bit of that,
yeah,
plus
but
that, minus
I think
this.
I'm only talking about an idea. It's not something I premeditate. I just wonder. I have earned myself the right to wonder what the fuck happened that made it go so right.
Yes.
Because doesn't make any inherent sense to me. I didn't go, I'm an amazing comedian, why are they listening? Oh, they're finally listening. Literally the first show I did, I thought it was like a quirky cabaret show, my first solo show, and everyone laughed and laughed and laughed. And I've always felt, you know, in my gigs, just playing in bands, I'd be able to make people laugh in between. But I didn't, so I guess I've thought a bit about what it's about, why in the absence of many good jokes I've been able to do these big venues and stuff. And there's obviously a lot of stuff about content and ideas that people want to hear and all that, right place and right time and all that, but I do wonder about that, about making something that can become a bit iconic. Because the guy I started doing cabaret, short curly hair, wearing a sort of button-up short sleeve t-shirt, you know, one of these beards in the early noughties, and you know, he couldn't be made anything of, really. And I didn't know that I was going to put myself in a position where I could, but having an image, having a brand, allows that to happen if it's going to happen. If you have an image and a brand and the audience don't come, you look like a fucking idiot. It's a risk that we willing to take. Sorry, that is quite boring, I'm sorry.
I just want to take you back to something you were saying there about, you know, the moment where you actually feel that connection between what you're doing on stage and what the audience are giving you back, and you come to the end of the show and it's a good one. It disappears very quickly, especially if it's not recorded, it's live, it disappears. So how do you sort of conjure that again? Because it must be frustrating when you can't.
Conjure the...
You know, the alchemy, the alchemy, yeah.
Well, I think a lot of comedians take lots of drugs and stuff. A lot of people who get that amazing thing, that very addictive, it's just endorphins, it's just, I mean, I'm sure it's evolutionary without hypothesising into evolutionary psychology and getting myself in trouble with my nerd fans. Surely we have evolved, surely it's, getting endorphins is good for... Probably good. I know, it's terrible. But you know what I mean, like, there'd be a reason why we seek endorphins. We all do. No, that's not true either. We all seek the affirmation of others, some to a much, much lesser degree, and finding a way to get the fucking motherload of that gear, you know, to make a few friends laugh, or just to give someone a gift and see them smile, or to give a good oral sex, or you know, whatever it is to give and get amazing affirmation for what you've done is great. And you get this job is like shooting up, mainlining that stuff, and like that, it's addictive and it's hard to come off. And then the weird thing is about making people laugh, if you don't know anything about comedy theory, and if like me you've done only a few hundred hours of gigs ever. I mean, a lot of the guys your John Bishops and McIntyres, they've done thousands of hours of gigs. And so for me it's like, it only takes 3 days of not gigging when I'm on tour to go, I don't know, why do they laugh? Why do they laugh? Like, what do I do again to make them laugh? Not that explicit, but their little voice, you know, going, you don't know how to do that job. And so I'm always sort of grumpy, like not nervous, but slightly furious before I go on stage. Like, why am I in this situation when I just want to watch telly and now I have to do this thing?
It's terrible.
Wasn't I awful backstage? Yeah. And then you get on stage and do your first bit and you go, oh yeah. You're off. It's awesome. And then I'm lucky because I get to go in before I have to do anything subtle.
Yeah.
That was Foxy Lady by Jimi Hendrix.
You mentioned Storm a moment ago. Congratulations, it's just been turned into an illustrated book.
Thank you. It's nothing to do with me, but yeah, I mean it obviously is. But Tracy and Dan just did it, and I went. Yeah. It's pretty cool, I think. I mean,
very cool.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
So that was that piece is I said earlier that you sang songs, but you also do.
Oh, I'm a poet. Yeah,
You're
I'm a poet.
poet.
I'm actually a poet.
Yeah.
I don't know why my Wikipedia
What today?
Yeah. Yeah, Storm's weird, huh?
How did it come? Tell us the story.
Well, beat poetry is actually older for me than comedy. So back when I was in uni, I did, with my friend Toby Schmitz, who's now, I went back and did Rosencrantz with, and who I'm trying to get involved in this movie I'm making in LA. And we wrote this beat poem, and it's Mike Myers' fault, because in So I Made an Axe Murderer, do you remember Harriet? I love you, she cried into the night like a fireman going to a window where there is no fire. You know, Mike Myers played this beat poem, weird, it's so weird. And we did a poem that went, Caroline, Caroline, her love was like a Jaffa in a bucket of Maltesers. Teasers stood out like sauerkraut, cabbage in a cornfield, cornflake in a bowl of Wheaties. It's like a piss take. And then this is all back in 4.
Yeah.
5. 6. And the next year I wrote Perineum Millennium, the in-between years, which is actually a T.S. Eliot Freud mashup. It's all arts degree stuff, you know, that just come arts degree. And fuck, I remember that. We're looking at the Perineum Millennium, the in-between years, not front bum, not back bum, not fiction or fact bum, not the idea or the reality, not the shadow or the hollow, not a bosom for a pillow, not Dante's big whinge about cruising round Hades. The perineum's as tasty as taties and gravy. It's quite big on the boys and just small on the ladies. It can break all together when the ladies have babies. I've got to get that out again, because that was in my second album, So Rock, which never made it to my first DVD that anyone watched. It never made it to past when things were still very county fair in my career. And so that was all there. And after that I mean, there's years and years between them and first starting to do comedy, and I went back and grabbed bits like that out of like uni sketch shows I did in my late teens. And then so in the middle there, I would go down to the Leaderville Hotel in Perth and with a band called K, which involved like Graham Blevins, who ended up doing BBC radio shows with me, amazing, amazing jazzers. And they would play their ridiculous, like, bullshit music, and, like, you know, fusion. And then I'd come and try and do a poem every now and then. I think I did 3 poems over 6 weeks or something. It was a little phase. And it was during that phase when I was still living in Perth and had not a pot to piss in that I wrote Mitsubishi Cult, which is a real, in terms of its form, is a precursor to Storm, because it is actually a Socratic dialogue. It's creating a straw man to knock down. It's saying, there was this guy in a pub, right? He looked at me intensely, eyes sparkle, contact lens green with artificial envy, cocks his head and fixes me with a condescending stare, flicks his bleached blonde-tipped hair and theorises thus. You know what I reckon? Pause for effect, adjusts his tackle as if it's semi-erect. I figure I better give him what I know he expects. What do you reckon? A hand on the shoulder and a avuncular wink, sips his lemonade. So it's like, and it was the, so I set up this asshole, and I get it going and going and going. You know what I reckon? It don't mean squat what you earn, or what you got, or the style of your hair, or what you wear. It matters not. I mean, what do you care that I live on a hill with views of the beach, that my chicks and my dogs have an ensuite bathroom each, that I've already reached my first 10 million? I'm only 36. I reckon you're as thick as 2 bricks if you think what is broke in your life can be fixed with money. And the funny thing is, and I shit you not, I would give it all up like that. and so I set up this dick, and he goes and goes and goes and goes and gets drunker and drunker, and I keep going. He's shitting me now, and his eyes start to glaze as through the haze of my anger I notice his G&T has gone on, and he's starting to dribble as he dribbles on and fucking on. But you guys are alright. And so I go choom, 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 until I punch him in the head. So the form is there, and it was the first beat poem that I'd written that wasn't mocking the genre of poetry. Like, prior to that, they were like, Caroline, you know, like, it was all about, like, how ridiculous is the notion of beat poetry, like, as if anyone could do it seriously, where we were the construct back in, with me and Toby Maximilian Schmitz and Tim D. Fingers Minchin, doing a sort of lounge thing. The construct was these 2 terrible wankers, like, doing poems about Freud and stuff, and we got to have our cake and eat it too, and I've done that ever since. Being able to sort of I mean, my beat poetry is still half a joke that I'm doing it at all, but with Mitsubishi Cult I stopped mocking the genre and made it work for me. And of course, people think the ability to talk and do this at the same time is really impressive, and it's not. It's actually not very good. It's just it's not very disciplined. But so it was showing off, and then I didn't do another one for. Oh no, I brought back Perineum for so long. And so when I went into Ready for This in Edinburgh, my last Edinburgh show in 2008, it was the things my shows had. They had some stupid, massive introduction where I come on stage and either fall off the stage or mock myself or something huge, and I've never not done that. They always had beat pop. And, you know, they always had something swing. So if you really love me, replaced info. You know, I know how that works. Maybe if I sort of do similar beats. And I think that was smart, because there was plenty of room for me to write without reinventing what made me different. And what made me different is going genre, something different, something stupid, something massive, something small. And so Storm, I went, what's my beat poem going to be this year? And I'd written for the show before, if anyone can show me one example in the history of the world of a single psychic who's been able to prove under reasonable experimental conditions that they're able to read minds, I'll give you my piano, one of my legs, and my wife. And it was just an assertion.
Right.
It was a gamble, a bet with people who believe stuff I don't believe. And I thought, I want to do better than that. I want to pose the arguments and refute them. And so I set up another totally one-sided, loaded Socratic dialogue where I posed all the questions in the mouth of this poor guy, poor Storm, and made her irritating and made me drunk so I could justify my obnoxious rant, and then went on it. And I fucking loved it. I loved doing that poem so much for so long. I mean, I love the movie, I love the book, but for me it's that I get to do a little play at the end of my show, and it doesn't have many laughs in it, it's just, but it's not bad, it's quite entertaining. And it hasn't aged too badly. You know, sometimes you think, oh, well, I'll get older and I'll realise that I don't hold those opinions so strongly anymore, or the science will change, or someone will finally understand that it is actually quantum vibrations that make memory, well, water have memory. But of course they didn't, and they won't.
I'm very tempted to ask you to do a little bit of Storm, but it's very long, so probably...
It's hard to get in and out of, famously.
Yeah, we won't. That's interesting, everything you've just said there, because I'm wondering, you're talking about your younger self, and mucking about with the form, poking fun at the form, you know, turning it upside down and almost trying to sort of get rid of it in order to show yourself. And perhaps the younger comedians, the younger artists, that's the privilege of youth, isn't it, really? You just muck about with things, and then eventually, because your work seems to be purer, closer to forms now, other forms now.
I think that's true. So yeah, I mean, I think with comedy, the thing with me is I didn't grow out of being an outside comedian into an inside comedian. I grew from being a frustrated musician actor to being a successful comedian very quickly. If you know, you define success as number of tickets sold, which, man, it's not about that. It totally is. I bought a car. That wasn't the intention, but I think young artists in any genre, for me it was cabaret. My first cabaret show was called, well, it was called Naval Cerebral Melodies with Umbilical Chords. We did a lot of, that was a thing. But my second show was called Die Cabaret, making a joke of the German, but also like I was trying to kill cabaret, because I'd just spent years touring around the country playing Piaf for Kerry-Ella Macaulay and playing Peter Allen for Todd McKenney and playing Eddie Perfect song for Eddie Perfect, and although Eddie was anti-cabaret as well, but I wanted to shit all over that genre, and in doing so I made myself some space, and now I do cabaret. I mean, it's cabaret. It's just that it's mine, and I've elbowed everything that they made me do out of the way. It just took me a long, long time, and it required me to get utterly sick of it, so I could write, and so I could say, fuck you, cabaret, which is what I was doing. There were songs that I can't even remember now. I used cabaret as the name of a horse. It was a metaphor. And so I think all artists do, comedians do that. You know, they all seem so old. I must seem so old to young comedians now. Like, I've literally done 6 years of comedy in my life, but I'm like some old veteran, and so for people starting out now, I must seem, I'm the thing to I'm the thing to go, fuck that, look at him with his hair and his stupid things, it's not about that anymore. And that's absolutely as it should be.
Sorry, did you do any imitation in your younger years? I was just thinking of people trying to imitate you. I wondered if you imitated anyone before. Not now, but when you started.
Well, not really comedically. I was trying to write songs like Freddie Mercury and the Kinks, and trying to use words like trying to be fucking Stoppard and Oscar Wilde, and trying to be clever, trying to be Shakespeare. Yeah. Well, you know, just trying to be a clever dick. So it wasn't about comedians, but I had I ended up in Melbourne with Eddie Perfect, Tripod, Casey Bonetto, who wrote a musical about the ex-Australian Prime Minister Paul Keating. I had these guys around me, and others, Sammy J and Josh Earl and Paul McDermott, and all these, there was this huge thing in Melbourne. Musical comedy over here was still like the losers in Edinburgh was still like awkward, you have to have a guitar. In Melbourne it was like, we were all putting pressure on, especially me and Eddie, because Eddie, I was playing for him, and I'm going, fuck, I should be able to do that, and then he'd play something for me, and we kept tacitly pushing each other, so it was more that sort of very positive rivalry that I got kicked out, I spilled out of that, I reckon. I don't know, maybe.
we've been skating around between sort of the early noughties and now. And
Yeah, so fuck with your time.
No, don't worry, I just put the notes down, it doesn't matter. We just listen to each other and talk.
Did you know I talk this much?
Yeah, it's a massive relief actually, it's great.
Wait till I start going on my pro-BNP rants.
Second part.
Nigel Barry, right,
I just want to sort of stop in the middle for a moment though. You know, Matilda didn't sort of happen sort of out of nowhere. You know, you've done all that work and you know, then somebody asked you to do it. But actually you had a relationship with the Roald Dahl estate way before your relationship with the RSC, didn't you?
Yeah, there's a weird story which is true. I wish I could find an email. I can't remember whether it was a letter. It was the 90s. But so sorry to do history because I know it's a lot of you would know it. But I wrote music for theatre from I always played in bands with my brother and stuff. But when I was 17, I wrote 8 songs for a musical youth theatre version of Love's Labour's Lost, which my friend Jenny just asked me to do because she'd seen me fiddling a massive leap of faith on her. It went really well, and then I wrote Breck's Mother Courage. I rewrote Kurt Weill's music. They didn't like the viol, so they got the Minchin. It was totally... But it was suited youth theatre, you know, and then Merchant of Venice, Tempest. I'd done like 5 scores for Shakespeare stuff, all using software, early music software, without knowing what any of the dots meant. So yeah, I had this thing, and then at some point I was working for a children's theatre company called Barking Gecko, and I'd done a score for a kids' puppet version of 1001 Nights, and I was thinking, my head was in kids' theatre, and I thought, I think my baby sister was reading Matilda, and I read it or reread it, and went, that should be a fucking musical. So I wrote to the Dahls. I just found an address and wrote them an email. Said, "What? Can you tell me the deal with the rights to Matilda? I think it'd be a really good musical, you know." And I was sort of thinking, you know, I could write it, and I might get like $2,000 for it, whatever, and then I could put it on at Barking Gecko and like do 4 weeks, and I could kids would love it. And they were like, yes, we are interested in exploiting the rights of Roald's famous work, Matilda, and could you send us a score for our consideration? And I was like, delete. Went to a pub and played it. Or went to the cafe and washed dishes or whatever the fuck I was doing. And so that was it. And then in 2009, I got a call from my agent, someone saying, oh, someone from the Royal Shakespeare Company wants to meet with you. No other information. And I went, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if, you know, my brain always goes, they want me to act. I was like, every time I live in LA now, and they're like, there's someone wants a meeting, and they go to the meeting, and they're going to want me to act. And they're like, can you write a musical? But fuck off. Still, you never get over that.
Look at how your posture changes when you say, I want to becomes the actor.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, so I wrote to them and they said send us a score, and that scared me off. But then I turned up and there's Matthew Watchers, who I'd never heard of, hadn't done my due diligence, found out who he was. So to me, he was just a little quiet guy. Didn't realise he won Tonys and was the guy who directed Art, and you know. And he went, have you ever heard of Matilda? It's a Roald Dahl book. And I was like, yeah. Have you ever thought of being involved in writing musicals? And I went, well, anyway, I did what I just did to you guys then and said, I wrote at the Dahl Estate, and he just sat there going. And basically I said, I did the thing I always do in those meetings, which is go, you shouldn't get me, because I don't know, I can't even read music, I don't know what I'm doing, but if you don't get me, you're a fucking idiot. If I'm exactly the right guy, but don't get me, there's got to be proper people, you know. But, yeah, so I think he was pretty convinced when I walked out of my enthusiasm. Yeah, but then he came and saw a show, and he watched the whole show and thought, oh, he's pretty funny, but I think it's all too... Matthew's obsessed by... Matthew has taught me or reminded me that you can make musical theatre that isn't laughing at itself. Like my beat poems, you can actually go, oh no, I'm not mocking the genre. I know we all think musicals are terrible, and you have to always have your tongue in your cheek and mock the genre, but he's like, don't do it then. Like, you know, obviously Book of Mormon is a work of genius, but it's utterly meta. It's not actually, well, it is a musical, but it's mostly a musical about musicals, which is fine. But there's something very tempting about the challenge of going, no, we're going to make you laugh and cry, and you're going to be utterly transported into this. And my first draft of Matilda had all this meta, like a sort of Les Mis moment. I mean, Revolting Children still has a bit of, I mean, it's obviously a pastiche of sorts, but yeah, he's great like that. So, and he's too ironic, he's not going to be able to do it. And then I went off stage, and Matthew, being in the theatre industry, was of course like, oh, I'm not here. And then I came back on to an encore, and happily sat back down as I did one of my sentimental songs. And apparently that.
Which one was that?
That was White Wine in the Sun. And Matthew's massively sentimental. Is that the way you want me to play it? Look.
Oh, that was sort of.
It has to be September.
I don't want you to at all, but they all do.
Yeah, right. Okay, this song. Oh, it's fucking long. Okay. Somebody's can't half play this song. Can I pick it up at the second verse?
No, the whole thing!
Well, it's July, so you're halfway there, and actually I am going home this Christmas, and I am looking forward to it, so I don't have to lie. Not that lying's a problem, but I do for my job. I'm looking forward to Christmas. It's Santa. Oh, that was in key. That's the major third. I wonder if it was someone messaging to say, have you got a fifth? This is going to be a awesome. A sweet chord. It's sentimental, I know, but I just really like it. I'm hardly religious. I'd rather break bread with Dawkins than Desmond Tutu, to be honest, although sometimes these days I'm not so sure. And yes, I have all of the usual objections to consumerism, to the commercialization of an ancient religion, to the westernization of a dead Palestinian press gang into selling PlayStations and beer. But I still really like it. I'm looking forward to Christmas, though I'm not expecting a visit from Jesus. I'll be seeing my dad, my brother and sisters, my gran and my mum. They'll be drinking white wine in the sun. I don't go in for ancient wisdom. I don't believe just 'cause ideas are tenacious, it means that they're worthy. Freaked out by churches. Some of the hymns that they sing have nice chords, but the lyrics are dodgy. And yes, I have all of the usual objections to the miseducation of children who in tax-exempt institutions are taught to externalize blame and to feel ashamed and to judge things as plain right or wrong. But I quite like the songs. I'm not expecting big presents. The old combination of socks, jocks and chocolates is just fine by me, 'cause I'll be seeing my dad, my brother and sisters, my gran and my mum. They'll be drinking white wine in the sun. And you, my baby girl, my jet-lagged infant daughter, safe in this world, my sweet blue-eyed girl. And if my baby girl, when you're 21 or 31 and Christmas comes around and you find yourself 9,000 miles from home, you'll know whatever comes. Your brothers and sisters and me and your mom will be waiting for you in the sun when Christmas comes. Your brothers and sisters, your aunts and your uncles, your grandparents, cousins, and me and your mom will be waiting for you in the sun, drinking white wine in the sun. Darling, whenever you come, we'll be waiting for you in the sun, waiting. I really like Christmas. It's sentimental, I know.
I need to do this. I need to do this now. Got everybody here.
Never have a dirty man wearing a white shirt.
Always, always. No, because you're not. Thank you so much for doing that, because you're not a puppet, you know, and I thought that was a bit cruel of me suddenly to go play that song.
No, I mean...
So thank you for doing that.
If you hadn't mentioned that's one she would have liked to have heard, and I love playing it. It just feels a bit weird to be like,
Yeah.
But I never... I mean, I've been playing a lot of my songs for a long time, and I think maybe a good thing about that I don't write pop, and I don't write pop because I failed to write popular music in the kind of radio play way. I think my failure at that was, without doubt, the mechanism of my success at writing theatrical songs, because they are mutually exclusive, and people who produce musical theatre who get pop songwriters to write their musicals seem to disagree with me, but I feel like mostly the evidence bears it out. And honestly, I wish I could write better pop songs. I do. I'm not good at distilling lyrics. I'm better at finding long ways to say, I don't know, fuck, it's different anyway. But one of the upsides of that, apart from the fact that I've been incredibly lucky and found my place, found my audience, found my niche, is that I don't actually get that sick of them, because usually they've been written from a place of truth, so I just have to go back and, you know, they help me go back, and I don't feel like a fraud playing them again and again, actually.
No.
Even though it's sort of tricks or something.
You've got a lot of words. You like words. You use words well, and you can almost sort of, you know, the thoughts are sort of exploding. You can see them exploding before they actually even come out. What sort of young boy were you?
What sort of young boy am I? You know?
Yeah.
I was quiet, chubby, quiet. Couldn't hear very well. Had a lot of allergies. Asthmatic, sort of slightly vague. Mum thought maybe I needed. Mum was a bit worried about me for a while there, thought I might be special. You know, around 3 or something, when someone like my mum, who's a very, very anxious person starts going, oh, maybe he was on the spectrum or something, but I turned out I had hearing problems, so I wasn't developing quite right. But and then it's you know, I wasn't very well. I got sick a lot, and I had ear infections and asthma. I was one of those fucking little kids who would have died if it wasn't for modern medicine. And I've been spooking for them ever since. And then you know, around my early teens, I went through puberty. I went, oh, I can run a bit, and I played sport, and it sort of I got a song that I'm working on, well I will work on when I get back to writing comedy, called Peter Picked in Primary School, about a friend of mine who sort of sounds like it's been done. Does anyone know, is that done?
No.
Good. A bit awkward. You should never say you're writing songs anyway, you should just, because I might not finish it, but about a friend of mine who was amazing in primary school, and, you know, inevitably he's very overweight and bald and sad now. It's just one of the many things in my life that bring me joy. So I wasn't a fine specimen, but I was very, very lucky that I grew out of being sort of sickly and stuff. But yeah, I was a very cheeky teenager. And, I was okay at school. You know, if I did the work, I'd get B pluses and A's, and if I didn't, I'd get B's, and I might as well not then. And you know, I certainly wasn't great, and I wasn't a leader, and I didn't get the lead roles in school plays, and I got kicked out of music school for not turning up to choir practice one time, and I didn't get detentions, and I never skipped a day of school, and I didn't hand in an assignment. I was just like, my parents would shit all over me if I ever didn't do the right thing. So I just did the right thing. I mean, my big brother did the right thing, my sister did the right thing. We all just lacked the imagination to rebel. We're folks, good folks who didn't want to disappoint my dad, and I didn't want my mum to scream. Which she would do if she got upset. Yeah. No, Mum was like, Mum's pretty sort of, it was worth us keeping everyone. There was 4 kids. We kind of learnt that if you come home at 12:10 and you said you were coming home at 12, all the way up to when I was 18, Mum would be losing her mind. You were dead on the road. So we just learnt to just not fuck with them.
I think the reason I asked it actually is, you know, it's being in such close proximity and feeling the speed of your brain. You sort of ooze a natural sense of curiosity. You seem incredibly curious about everything. Did you have that as a child?
No, I don't think so particularly, and it's obviously slightly embarrassing you saying that stuff and me having to respond as, oh yeah, that's me, I'm very fast brain. I'm not. Seriously, just no, there's no way to talk about this stuff. I feel like I like my brain. A lot of the time, like I'm working on this new musical at the moment, we're down there 10 hours a day and we're solving problems, and it's hard, but I love it, with Matthew and Danny in the room, and we're, you know, I'm trying to...
What's this? What's it called?
This is Groundhog Day. This is Groundhog Day, the musical, which I'd love to play your song from at the end, well, yeah, too bad if you don't want. I think Danny's here. He might have made it. He was meant to be doing script edit, so he shouldn't be. He probably is. So Danny Rubin wrote Groundhog Day in 1992 or whatever. It turned into an American classic, and now it's going to be a musical, which could be a fucking nightmare, because you shouldn't always adapt to everything.
No.
You shouldn't always do new versions of things. You shouldn't take a valuable property and try and wring more money out of it by slightly altering it and doing something else with it. Groundhog Day the musical could be a terrible idea. But it's the most wonderful... Anyway, should we talk about that later? Anyway, it's the most wonderful theatrical construct. It's a man trapped in a day, like all over the stage. We have players on it, like Tom Stoppard's Rosencrantz, Guildenstern are dead. They're 2 men trapped in a play they don't understand. This is a man trapped in a world, and the world rotates around him, and it's perfect. It should have always been a play. Or, arguably, a musical. I think personally, it should have been a play, but I have nothing to contribute to that project. No, it's really interesting, trying to make it sensible. I love that. I'm definitely not particularly bright. I'm bright in my way. I don't know anything about anything. If you sat here and said, so, you know, when the sack of fucking whatever in Egypt and the Greeks, I don't know, you know, or if you said point to fucking Qatar on a map, I'm terrible. I have massive gaps in my knowledge. I'm embarrassingly poorly educated in many, many ways, but I'm quite good at ideas and stuff, and I like it. And I think the fast talking and stuff is maybe slightly contrivance, you know, like, I don't suppose everyone can talk fast, but it came out of me doing comedy and finding that people laugh and think you're clever if you talk fast. And I don't know, I don't know, it's partly because I've got a lot of things to say and I think it's boring, so I just want to get to the end as quickly as I can. And it's very, very damaging, this career, for not turning into a fucking self-regarding asshole. I mean, lots of people listen to some of the stuff I do, and it's very hard to not go, oh, I must have a really great opinion on stuff. So I don't know what to do about that, because if you do have a way of saying things that people respond to, it's good to keep saying them. Imagine if Stephen Fry went, oh, I should shut up. You don't want him to shut up, you want him to talk, you know. So, I ain't Stephen Fry, but maybe, well, you know, I mean, here we are, fuck, you know. Say something, I talk too much. You get into your head that you have a brilliant mind, and half of you's going, you've got a brilliant mind, the other's going, shut up, you fat, asthmatic little fuck. I don't have two voices in my head.
I'm going to say, yeah, you can shut up, you because, Tim, we've been talking for an hour already. We've got to stop and let these lovely people go out and have a drink, but then come back in about 15, 20 minutes and we will continue.